Yeah, have you seen that play out somewhere? Yeah, even perhaps in yourself. So that's an example. That's imbalanced. Genuine power is the ability to give and receive love in every moment, to be in reciprocity, reciprocal relationship with life. So again, how beautiful to have open the ability to give and the generosity of that. And that's a very, again, active masculine energy, and the more passive feminine energy of I'm going to be soft enough to receive you. I'm going to be soft enough to allow. Yeah? Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Who else? Yeah. Remind everyone your name.
I'm Tanya. So you shared that you said your presence, or our presence, is our contribution, and that we don't have to do anything. Our presence is a gift, right? So how does this message translate to people who feel marginalized and feel like their presence is not a gift?
Yes, yes. It's not just people who feel marginalized. I would say that 99% of the population is impacted by this kind of conditioning. And for marginalized peoples, it's even stronger, because there's even that much more, because of a dispassionate economy and a violent system, there's that much more pressure that says, if you're not producing all day long, you're not even going to be able to pay rent, right? And so we have a really imbalanced system in that way too, and that's a further expression, actually, of a world based upon hierarchical perception. Part of what practice invites us into, and everyone who practices and wants to go deep has to do this work, is to really start getting down into the nitty-gritty of, how am I engaged in the mechanism of hierarchical perception beyond all of it, beyond gender, race, class, just at a fundamental moment-by-moment perceiving lens? And what is the alternative to that? What happens when I really go down and in to my body, down and into presence, and I learn to perceive from awareness itself? I learn to perceive from the heart, we might say. This is where we learn to perceive wholeness and connectedness. It's just there. It's just there for us, okay? So your question is really, really, really important. It's a really important one. And I would say, in today's world, we don't have the, practice is not a casual thing. It's mindfulness even. Mindfulness and Dharma carries personal effect, societal and cultural effect, transpersonal effect, global effect. If we see the fundamental medicine that it offers us, then we can take it both in and out and see how to transform the systems of our world, which are caught as manifestations of the myth of separation. Is this language working for you? Mm-hmm. But it does also go hand in hand with seeing how the myth of separation operates within us. And just for people who are newer, when I talk about the myth of separation, this is also related to what I said, that fear is the fundamental distortion for human beings. The myth that has fed humanity for a very long time, that somehow I am separate from you, we are separate from the earth, I'm even separate from my deeper self. So how do you know that? Well, someone can be there doing some act like chopping carrots, or doing a yoga pose even, or cleaning the house. And instead of actually being there at one with that task, at one with what is, that person is completely off in a different place in their minds. Anyone? You had this? Okay, separate from your own experience, separate from your own self, literally taking an action that is completely untrue for your body, completely. Raise your hand if you've been there, done that. Yeah, completely separate from others. I can be talking to you, appearing to be listening, but I'm really having my own conversation in my head. What does she think of me? Oh, she has great hair. Oh, what should I cook for dinner tonight, right? Yeah. So we're learning how to heal this through practice, and I don't know what will happen, none of us do, with all that's changing globally right now, but there is more awareness than there has been at some points in the past of some of the ways that this myth of separation has indoctrinated all of our structures and systems, and certainly a desire in those of us who are waking up to change things. You with me? Anything else you would want to say about that? Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Yeah.
So what you just said is rolling in my head on the question of the balance between being with what is sacred masculine and what sounds to me like tolerating intolerable behavior.
Okay.
So there's some horribly intolerable things
Yes.
happening in our planet right
Yes,
now.
yes.
And can you speak to how does that all
Yes.
work?
A couple of things I'll share. Number one, acceptance, which is part of conscious allowing, acceptance, is not resignation. It's also not spiritual bypassing. It's not closing our eyes to that which we perceive out there that is unwholesome. You with me so far? A practice that goes in and down into our bodies means we're allowing our experience to be there without bypassing it, jumping over it, and going right to reactivity. So for instance, as we look at the state of the world right now, and as we experience so much, I mean, there's always been so much human suffering and beyond. The human realm is not the only realm. So much suffering, and it is so painful to open one's eyes to it fully. But from unconsciousness, a place that we can go to is, instead of feeling those feelings, instead of really feeling them, really feeling my grief for the loss of living systems that has already happened in this planet, really feeling my grief for the instance in Arizona last week where an African-American mother and 4-year-old walked out of a store, the 4-year-old carrying a doll she had picked up in the store. The cops were called, and the cops pounded their car with guns and terrifying language, okay? So we're feeling our feelings fully about that. When we go unconscious, what we do instead is we either say, business as usual, I'm turning away from those feelings and blocking them off, okay? Everything's fine. Or we go to immediate reactivity, which actually takes us away from our grief, our feeling body that actually can lead to compassionate action and a deeper commitment to being part of the change our world needs to see. Does that make sense to people? People might also go to paralysis. I'm so terrified by the notion of climate change or whatever. It's terrifying. I'm so terrified that I'm going to get paralyzed and believe that there is nothing I can do to be a contribution to human consciousness at this time. Okay? So denial, paralysis, finger pointing. How many of us go to finger pointing sometimes? It's outrageous what we see. So it's not blocking the rage, but it's actually being with it and being with the grief underneath. So this is the subtle shift that I'm pointing to. And no, acceptance and resignation are not the same thing. Everything in this practice is about living one's life fully aligned in the spirit of service, what is best for all. And so we're allowing ourselves to feel our pain for the world. In fact, pain and our ability to feel pain and to feel joy, to feel grief and to feel joy are two sides of the same coin. If we numb one out, we numb both out. And there's a whole lot of numbing out going on in our world. If you want to question that, just look at the list of pharmaceuticals that now exist, okay? And I would also say one more thing about that. I'm so glad you asked that question. Let's see what I want to say about this. The conscious masculine and conscious feminine, what's, we could say, different between that and the distorted masculine or distorted feminine is that it's those qualities being used on behalf of the greater good, with a sense of what is best for all, with a sense of in service to the whole, rather than a sense of I'm separate, I'm based in fear, and then I'm using these qualities just out of fear or selfishness. Does that make sense? We can talk about that a little more as we go, but very much, if you want to talk about the sacred feminine and sacred masculine, It's these qualities which are innate in all of us, really being used on behalf of the greater good, with a sense of service, a sense of connectedness. Does that help respond to your question? Okay, we'll go deeper. We'll go deeper. And be aware of any tendency to want to sort of figure it out and understand and trust that, the beauty of this practice is sometimes it's like, I don't see how that fits with that. And then as we just sit, as we practice, as we go deeper, it all becomes clear. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, and one more thing I'll say about that, I always find it interesting, we're a culture that's very obsessed with light, if you've noticed. In fact, due in part to the overlighting of our planet, which if you look out at a satellite view now of planet Earth, it's covered very much in light. Because of this obsession and also this spiritual obsession, let's get to the light and get away from the dark, okay? We've really created some confusion in ourselves because light and dark, like feminine and masculine, are partners, okay? We need both, and both are teachers. I offer this because just consider for a moment that when we turn on the light, let's say, just on a very practical level, we're often using the light to help ourselves distinguish between things, okay? To help ourselves to do a very detailed task, like put a thread through a needle, we'd need light, correct? To distinguish between things. In the darkness, I would suggest, we're more equipped to perceive wholeness, non-duality, non-separation, just wholeness. And that's not very popular in our culture. Using our cognitive faculty, our cognitive mind, is an obsession in our culture. It's way more valued than, and this also has to do with the masculine and feminine, using the perception of the heart. Are you kidding? Using the perception of the heart, using intuition, using our larger faculties, which each and every one of us has, we just haven't uncovered, for relational intelligence and attunement. So this is really big, really big. We want to, to really be of service, we want to have access to the light and the dark, to our cognitive faculties and our ability to perceive wholeness, to perceive that there is no separation whatsoever. Okay, we can know that intellectually, but that's not the point. It's to drop in to that full body perception.